Hello and welcome back to another episode of Talking Cardboard. We are jam-packed with the full crew here, and on this episode we're ranking our top trick-taking games, so stay tuned. Thanks for tuning in to another top list video here. This one we're going to be focusing on trick-taking games. We're Talking Cardboard. If you like any of our content, hit that like button, subscribe, leave a comment. We do a bunch of reviews, playthroughs, a couple of learn to play games, and we love interacting with the community, so interact with us as well. I'm your host, Jurch. To my right, we've got John, and then Ryan on the far end. To my immediate left, we have Corey, and then Nick on my far left. And in this episode, we are ranking our top 5 trick-taking games. Now, before we begin and start to debate and talk about some of these games, we have a couple of categories that we're kind of omitting here for the sake of this video and to try to keep things pretty clear. Corey, what is the first group of games that we are omitting from this top list of trick-taking games?
The first game specifically has some trick-taking elements to it, and that is Arcs. Like George said, we're just omitting it from the list because it's not really centralized around the trick-taking mechanic, and it's kind of a twist on the mechanic itself. It's got a little bit of it going on it, but we're not going to include it on this list.
And then Corey, there's another game that's a lot of people might be wondering why that's not on our list. And what is that game?
Yeah, another kind of adjustment on the trick-taking mechanism. It's not true trick-taking fashion is Brian Baru. Another game we really enjoy a lot, and it hits the table a lot here for the Talking Cardboard crew, but it just didn't really fall within the parameters of a true trick-taking game.
There's a trick-taking element to it for sure, but because that's not the driver of what makes that game go, then we decided to put it off into a different category and a different video. So that's the first subset of games that we're not really having in this video. Ryan, what's the other subset of games that we're not including in this list?
Trick-taking games just based on your standard 52 card deck, thinking euchre, hearts, spades, oh heck. There's probably 100 variations of trick-taking games, but we're focusing on published, designed trick-taking board games.
And that rules out a lot of my favorites, but like you mentioned, it's because there's 100 different variations or rules or different names for the games that we wouldn't be able to fit those in this list and still make it coherent and relatively short. So without further ado, team, we're going to go 5 through 1 as we typically do. And the number 5 game on our list is Stella Quest. John, if you can give a 30-second rundown on that game, and then we can start talking about why it's number 5 on our list.
Yeah, Stella Quest is unique in that you actually have a set of lives for each player, and you can use those lives to draw extra cards, or you lose them if you have to take an emotion card that you already have. The objective of that game is to collect all 6 emotion cards, and one twist it also has is that if you win a round back-to-back, you lose a life. A couple new rules with super trumps and just how the trump suit's decided, but a pretty clean trick-taking game, just with some extra mechanics added to it.
Yeah, and Nick, why do you think this game made our top 5 list?
Well, it definitely brings a lot of new ideas to the trick-taking genre. First of all, the fact that you can see the colors of the different cards every player has. That's not normal. Most trick-taking games, you'd have zero idea what kind of colors or suits each player has. And then also the idea of not wanting to win back-to-back tricks and kind of having that being a deciding factor in your strategy. You don't have to not win back-to-back tricks, but if you do, you're penalizing yourself. And generally, most trick-taking games, you want to win tricks when you can. So those are a couple nuances to the system of Stella Quest that made it kind of stand out to us.
It definitely adds a lot of tension in that in a lot of trick-taking games, you want to try to control the table and win as many tricks in a row as you can. But here, you're starting to kind of expend resources with running the table a little bit, and then you're trying to balance out what you're taking. Otherwise, you could get boxed in and get penalized as well. All right, let's move on to number 4, and this is Tournament at Camelot. Nick, how about you describe the basics of that game?
So in Tournament at Camelot, what makes this game kind of unique is, first of all, every player is choosing one of the Knights of the Round Table as their character, and each character has a asymmetric ability that you will use throughout the course of playing the game Tournament of Camelot, and they also have a sidekick. I think there's probably a different term that they use in the actual game, but basically a sidekick character that can come into play as well. Now, the other differentiating factor in Tournament of Camelot is that every player has an amount of health points. I think it's like 300 to 400 health points that each player will have during a round of Tournament of Camelot, you'll be playing a trick-taking game as normal. But then at the end of that game, players will count up how many tricks that they've taken, and basically, depending on the cards that you have in your tricks, that's how much damage your character is taking. And of course, as you can imagine, you want to be the surviving player in a game to win Tournament of Camelot. So it kind of turns, again, the idea of trick-taking on its head, where in this game, you want to be very cautious about taking tricks, because essentially by taking tricks, you're taking in damage and hurting the life points of your character.
Yeah, it's the fact that you get to be a character and everybody plays then a little bit differently, and it's how well you can mesh what your character wants to do with trying to not take too much damage, or sometimes you can allow a little bit more damage. It's not a big problem. Corey, why did this game make our top 5 list of trick-taking games?
Yeah, again, like, it's more of a board game style trick-taking game. It's not this classic 52 cards that we were talking about at the beginning of this video, where it does kind of twist everything on its head and makes you think a little bit differently about what you're doing. And the whole, fact of like health points, or actually feeling like you're combating your opponents and that sort of thing, throws a little bit of theme into it as well. So it's definitely a good one that makes the list for not only twisting the mechanics around, but also adding a little bit of theme and flavor to it too. And
it definitely has a lot of replayability, as you have different characters or different kind of catch-up weapon combinations too, that you can, even if you're losing a couple of rounds in a row, as long as you're still alive, you can really start to combo things and then shoot ahead of people. So that's why I think that it's a little bit higher on our list, is because it's got a lot of replayability and it's a pretty quick game as well, one that we've definitely enjoyed. Now, number 3 on our list, I'm a little leery about, not because I don't like the game, I just don't like who I become when I play the game. I think that everybody should be thinking the exact same way as me, but turns out we've got different brains, people think differently, and that's something I struggle when it comes to the crew.
And you don't like to cooperate.
I don't. If you guys are going to go in the wrong direction, if you're not going to follow what suit needs to be taken by who, no. Okay, we're good. Before we get too much into my personal struggle with the crew, Nick, tell us about this game.
So I'm not going to say this on the record, but off the record, I personally feel the crew might be the first cooperative trick-taking game that came to mass market. Now, someone might in the comments tell me I'm wrong, and there was this trick-taking game that was cooperative that came up before. But as far as I know, and most people probably will agree with me, this is the first cooperative trick-taking game, and why it's high on this list, because it's so unique to be playing a trick-taking game cooperatively. Now, in the crew, it has this outer space sci-fi theme where you and your other players are acting as astronauts trying to complete missions. And that's another interesting aspect of the crew, is that every round you're completing missions that are unique given whatever mission you're trying to accomplish. And there's like, I think, 50 total missions that come with the game. And what's a mission? Well, simply put, a mission is essentially trying to win tricks in a specific order, or having each player win a trick with a certain number card in the trick. And there's so many variations. As I just said, there's 50 different missions, so they're all unique in terms of what the mission is trying to dictate you to do. But what makes it unique or challenging is that you're not supposed to communicate when you're playing a round of the crew. So you can't tell players what color cards you have, and that's what makes it challenging.
Except for when you have the walkie-talkies, which do allow you to break the rules, although you are limited to the number of those you have for a whole round.
Correct. Yep.
And I will say we're bunching the Quest for Planet 9 in with Mission Deep Sea, which is the second version of the crew, which I personally like a little bit better than the original, but we are bundling that into the same thing, where essentially the main difference in Mission Deep Sea is that you're not necessarily having to play through a numerical value of missions from 1 to 50. There is a version in Mission Deep Sea where you just shuffle up the mission cards essentially and hand them out to players randomly, and they can either draft or pick and choose what specific mission or win condition that they want for themselves.
Now, John, despite playing this game with me, why is this number 3 on our list?
I think we just recognized that this was the first cooperative trick-taking game we ever played, and it just still holds a dear spot. I mean, it's well designed, and going through those sequential missions can be really fun. So
we do enjoy a lot of these sequential mission cooperative, or even if it's like competitive games. We like kind of that pseudo storytelling that's happening. So as long as you guys don't mind playing it with me and kind of the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde I get into, then this is a great game that we love playing and bringing to the table.
Yeah.
And a shameless plug for other Talking Cardboard content. If you want to look, there is a video of myself playing the Deep Sea PC version of the crew with the Podfather Gaming himself, Stephen Bonacore, via, I think BGA is what we were playing online via BGA, I want to say. So if you want to check that video out, it is still live as I believe. So anyway.
Yeah, nice little plug for some of the extra hustle that you've been doing, Nick. Now we're on to our top 2 games, and number 2 on our list is Niet. John, what's the quick overview of how to play Niet?
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. 2 things that make it unique from a traditional trick-taking game is that prior to each game starting, you actually do like a drafting mechanic to change some of the rules of the game. The other part that's unique is there's always a reason to scream Niet. That's really all there is to it. I'll let someone explain some of the rule changes they like, maybe as a positive, because I didn't really have a strong feeling on any of those.
I really like this game. My family plays a lot of 500, that more typical 52 card trick-taking game, and there's always situations where you kind of get into your rut or feelings on, you know, how you play, how your opponents play, and then it's more of kind of a chess style that there's a certain number of moves that you can do. But with Niet, when you're able to change the rules, you get to change the teams each round. You can be changing the trump. You've got a few other rules that you can manipulate in the game. Then it really shakes things up, and there's a lot of interplay that goes on between people, and if there's somebody, their individual score is getting too far ahead, then you start to change the rules where that person then is kind of left out in the cold. It's got a lot of replayability, especially if you like those more traditional trick-taking games. It's a very simple concept of a game, but it's one where, depending on the group you're playing with, depending on how many times you replay it, it can add a lot of depth to that experience. Anybody else want to spend some more time talking about Niet?
The cover art of the box is like a dog in a Russian Soviet hat, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's got some cutesy little art to it.
Yeah, it does have good art to it.
It does.
I agree
Yeah,
with
it
that.
does.
And the thing I was going to add is just to piggyback off Jerish, is that I grew up watching my parents and grandparents play 500, which is one of the classic, trick-taking games that, using a 52 card deck, and in that game you're on teams, and so that to me is what a trick-taking game was, is a game that you're playing trying to win tricks as a team, and so yet it spins that a little bit in that you're changing your teams round to round, which I think is kind of a lot of fun, because then you're not stuck with the same player. If you're
Stuck with them.
Yep, for better or for worse.
for better or for worse. But anyway,
I just love drafting over the rules changes each round.
Yeah.
That's my favorite highlight. So
Yep, that's really cool too. So that's why Niet is number 2 on our list. It's got a lot of variability, variable player counts, and it's one of the early trick-taking games that, Nick, you introduced to all of us, and we seem to really like that. But now on to number 1. Ryan, what is our number 1 trick-taking game per Talking Cardboard?
Number 1, we have Fellowship of the Ring trick-taking game. It's a great game if you haven't played it yet. Box art's cool. Card art is cool.
Yeah.
Theme is really good, if you love Lord of the Rings at least. It plays through really kind of each chapter and main story point of Fellowship of the Ring. They're going to come out with 2 Towers and Return of the King in the future. But each chapter you kind of get introduced to new characters to play within that chapter, and it tells you which characters must be played. So if you're playing with 4 people, it will say like, okay, Bilbo, Sam, and Gandalf have to be in this chapter, but then the 4th player can pick whoever of the available characters. And each player has their own sort of win conditions for that hand. And if anybody doesn't reach their win condition by the end of the round, you are done. You get to replay it, But it's really, really fun. Changes every hand, similar to the crew. Cooperative is fun. Yeah, theme's great. I love it.
Yeah, it's really cool that as you get the setup for each of the different rounds, it does feel like it's a different game each round.
Yeah. And you really feel like you're playing through the story, like you're playing through the Fellowship. And at some point when they're all 3 out.
They do a really good job at adding mechanics that stay true to the theme. Like when you're in the Fangorn Forest, you literally take all the forest cards out, which is one of the suits, and it becomes its own standalone deck with its own mechanics for that round, which is, it's like, how do you think of that and make that work in a trick-taking game and make it work effectively? Yeah. So that was really awesome.
It's really
and of all the trick-taking games we've played, I believe this is the one, because it's a combination of, it's a cooperative, and a lot of people know the story or the idea of Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring. I think it's got the lowest threshold of entry in terms of player skill. So it brings in card players, it brings in competitive or cooperative, and then Lord of the Rings fans too. So it's a very inclusive game, and that's, I think, part of why we put it number 1. Yeah. And then it is like you're playing through the story together, and it's a great just shared experience. Corey, what else do we need to add?
Another thing that's really unique with this too that you don't see in a lot of trick-taking games is it technically plays solo, but it also plays really well as a two-player game.
Yep.
Yeah.
You almost have kind of like a pyramid system of cards in front of you that you're using as a dummy player, but you and your partner in a two-player game are essentially trying to play the best cards for that dummy player along with playing your cards. And it's not an overly complicated, complex system on how to do it too. It's very straightforward. So it's one of the few trick-taking games that you can actually play as a two-player game as well.
I'll also add, accessibility-wise, I think it's great because, like, Chapter 1 is about as basic as you can get for trick-taking games. It just kind of eases you right into this is how these games are played. Chapter 2 adds, like, a couple little more things, and you start to think, like, oh, is this game, like, even that hard? This is very easy. But then you're like, Chapter 3, Chapter 4, and pretty soon you're like, oh, yeah, we are not going to win this, and we're 3 hands into this round. So it's really good for that, easing you into it and then really getting into the meat of it.
And that's our list of the top 5 trick-taking games that we're recommending for the gaming community. We've got a wide list there, and check out some of the trick-taking adjacent games we mentioned at the top of the show as well. For all of us here at Talking Cardboard, get out there and take some tricks.